Hello, and welcome to Health Patrol, where happy people come from healthy food. I'm your host today, Vinay Kolva. In this video, we'll be talking about a very cool topic. A disclaimer: this supplementary information and video are for informational purposes only, and are not and do not represent a substitute for the advice and/or guidance of a licensed healthcare professional. While all attempts have been made to ensure the accuracy of the information presented in this video, please consult your physician or other relevant healthcare professional prior to acting on any information presented in the supplementary information and the video. So, what topic are we talking about today? We're going to be discussing an intersection of nutrition and neuroscience. We'll be talking about the nervous system and nutrition. This is a departure from my normal videos, but I felt that this would be interesting to my viewers, which is you guys. Thus, please let me know if you'd like me to make more of these types of videos. Now, on to the video. But why this topic specifically? It started when I saw a new paper in Nature Neuroscience. Well, that is covered by Science Daily. Thanks to Science Daily, I found out about a new paper that was published in Nature Neuroscience, a major neuroscience journal. It found a new role for certain types of neurons, which we will discuss in a minute. And this is brand new, of course. So, to start, let's talk about neurons and nutrition. And we're going to be covering 4 types of neurons today. We'll be talking about POMC, GABAergic, AGRP/NPY neurons, and D1 neurons. So let's start with POMC. These neurons are located in the hypothalamus, a major part of the brain. These neurons are largely anti-inflammatory. That is, they prevent inflammation. But how would they do that? Well, they do this generally through a molecule called leptin, which regulates bodily homeostasis. Don't worry, I'll explain all these terms. Homeostasis, in essence, describes a stage of biological harmony. So think about a balance scale. Generally, if you have 2 items of the same weight and you put them on opposite sides of the scale balances. In the same way, when you add something in the same way, the body acts like that. If the body doesn't get anything new or remove anything, it's like the balanced scale. Now think about adding something to a currently balanced scale. What happens? Well, that balanced scale goes out of balance. In other words, it becomes imbalanced. So in order to make it balanced again, you need to put something on the other side to ensure that it's balanced. That's the way the body maintains homeostasis. If, say, I eat something, the body will add something else or remove a certain amount from what I ate in order to ensure that the body is in a constant state of homeostasis. This way, the body can function optimally. So yes, POMC neurons play an important role in this. Their second role is regulating the endoplasmic reticulum, which is a part of the cell. This part of the cell is extremely important for energy because it deals with energy. And how does it do this? As previously, with inflammation. In essence, POMC neurons, which are anti-inflammatory, try to regulate endoplasmic reticulum by using inflammation in order to ensure that they function properly. Inflammation plays a key role with POMC neurons. Further, because of their anti-inflammatory role, POMC neurons also happen to play a major role in obesity, surprisingly, because, as I mentioned, their role with the endoplasmic reticulum means that they have a role with cell energy processing, which directly correlates to obesity. Next, let's talk about GABAergic neurons. These neurons are really important. If you go to pubmed.gov and search GABAergic neurons, you'll come up with a lot of results. Why is that? Well, that's because GABAergic neurons are not just very well studied, but also because GABAergic neurons play key roles in many parts of the body. To give a short summary, GABAergic neurons regulate hunger. Now, a lot of the items that a lot of the things I'm mentioning are based off of animal research, not human research. So take them with a grain of salt. But in essence, GABAergic neurons regulate hunger in mice and feelings of fullness in mice. Why is this important? Now, let's think about when you last ate something. Perhaps you're eating something right now as you watch this video, or you ate something, say, an hour ago. So when you ate, you were probably hungry, or not, for those of you who are trying to eat junk snacks while your parents aren't watching. But anyways, when you were eating, you probably felt hungry. When you were feeling hungry, GABAergic neurons probably played a role in that. But what happens when you're done eating? You feel full, right? Now we know that that isn't really perfect. There are many problems with our feelings of fullness, but in both cases, GABAergic neurons are involved. So when I or you eat something, the GABAergic neurons tell us, oh, I'm hungry, I need a snack or dinner or lunch. And then when we're done, then the GABAergic neurons tell us again, okay, I'm full, no thank you, I don't want anything extra. So both POMC and GABAergic neurons play key roles in nutrition, mostly through regulation of the body. Next, let's move on to AGRP/NPY neurons. So these neurons regulate food consumption and bodily balance, similar to POMC neurons. They regulate insulin sensitivity and weight as well. Again, as with GABAergic neurons, this is important because AGRP neurons make sure that we don't eat more than we need. Let's go back to my explanation of homeostasis. Remember how I said that when you eat something, the body needs to compensate somehow? Well, that's what happens. That gets out of balance if you eat too much. If you eat too much, the body cannot manage the amount of food that you ate, and thus it becomes more difficult to maintain homeostasis, which can result in illness. So this is important as well. Thus, this is important as well. As I mentioned, because AGRP/NPY neurons regulate how much you eat and your homeostasis, they also can directly relate to insulin sensitivity and your weight, which is important because that means that AGRP neurons play an important role in preventing obesity. Finally, we come to D1 neurons, which play a key role in regulating food intake. Again, as I've mentioned previously, our neurons regulate how much we eat, which is extremely important because it ensures that the body can manage what we eat without overdoing itself. All right, now we've discussed neurons, so let's move on to the brain. The brain is actually quite important. Now, mind you, in this section, I'm going to be talking about the brain generally, not specific neurons. But keep this portion in mind, because the brain generally needs to be fed, just like individual neurons. So let's start off with diet and gut bacteria. So when we eat something, our brain plays a key role in regulating what we eat, as I've mentioned in the previous section where we talked about individual neurons. But the brain also needs power. In the same way that your heart or your lungs or any part of your body would need energy, so does your brain. I can tell you, I cannot focus and work if I don't eat. In the same way, the brain needs food to function. But how does the brain get its energy? One extremely popular theory, which has been well documented, is the gut-brain microbiota axis. In essence, the gut microbiota, the bacteria in your gut, play a key role in brain health, surprisingly. That's because the brain and the gut microbiota are connected, which makes sense because at the gut microbiota, By then, the food has been broken down, the food that you eat has been broken down to a very fine level. That's important because only that level of breakdown can make it easy for the body to digest. After all, I do not think that our bodies would be as effective at absorbing a lot of energy out of undigested food. That's why the body breaks food down, in order to make it easier for it to absorb nutrients. In the same way, it's easiest for the brain to get nutrients if the gut microbiota are the ones who are taking the nutrients and sending them to the brain. All right, now that we've discussed the brain, let's move on to the spinal cord. So we, as vertebrates, have a spinal cord. Most, if not all, vertebrates have spinal cords. In fact, that's what differentiates us from invertebrates, which don't have spinal cords. You know, spinal cords, though, have caused some problems. For example, much of back pain and spinal fractures can be attributed to the design of our spinal cord. Because we stand on two legs, our spinal cord is actually not as stable, surprisingly. Because our spinal cord is improperly structured, spine fractures can be common if you're not careful, and problems have occurred as a result. But how do you make sure that your spinal cord doesn't break? There are a few ways, one of which is diet. The DASH and Mediterranean diets have been shown, based on current evidence, to be the most effective for helping those with spinal injuries. So if you've already injured your spine, get on a Mediterranean or DASH diet. For more information about the Mediterranean diet, go back to the first video of this series, in which I covered different nutrition topics. In other words, video 11. Okay, to conclude this video, we're going to talk about a few nutrients for the nervous system. Now note that this isn't comprehensive, but that I'm going to be covering most major nutrients. Let's start off with B vitamins. So we're not going to be covering every single B vitamin because not all of them are important for the nervous system. We'll be covering B1, B6, and B12. So let's start off with B1, which is most important because it provides energy to neurons. This is crucial because it ensures that neurons can function. Remember, neurons have to carry electrical signals, and many of them can be miles long. So having energy to get signals through is important. Imagine if a tunnel had a rock collision every day, then no one could pass through the tunnel. Now let's move on to B6, which assists with the dopamine function. But what is dopamine anyways? Well, dopamine is a neurotransmitter which plays several roles in the human body. I'm not going to elaborate on these roles as they're covered in more detail in the supplementary information, but this is a key thing to remember. Eating enough B6 is important to ensure that your dopamine is functioning properly, because dopamine powers many functions of the neurons, which can be useful for us. Finally, let's talk about B12, which you may already know, as it's very common. B12 creates the neuronal myelin sheath. What this is a protective covering over the neuron. This ensures that any signals that pass through don't get disturbed, or that the neuron doesn't break because of the protective coating, of course. Let's move on to vitamin K. So vitamin K has two associated proteins that are important to remember: GAS6 and protein S, which both regulate cell growth and protect the brain. As with B vitamins, this function is important because GAS6 and protein S ensure that the neurons are able to help the body to grow. They enable the neurons to help the body. Further, GAS6 protects the myelin sheath, similar to B12, except that while B12 is construction, GAS6 is more maintenance. So think of it that way. Finally, we'll cover omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids actually have quite an important role when it comes to brain health. For more information on omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, I have a video in the unit 1 about omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, which I recommend you watch. Omega-3 regulates homeostasis and central nervous system function, which is more important than you think. The homeostasis part I've explained already, and you may know by now that homeostasis is extremely important for bodily health. But what about the function of your central nervous system? Now, okay, think about a hub and spoke system. So if you live in a city with a public transport network, you may know this. All the train or bus lines start in a center and go radiating out. That's basically what the central nervous system does. It's basically the central part of the nervous system, which all nerves pass through and then split off into branches. That's why it's important, because this central part ensures that neurons get pretty much everywhere. In addition, I found a study that suggests that omega-3 fatty acids may benefit myelin sheath production, although you should take this claim with a grain of salt just because it was based on one study. Further, omega-3 fatty acids can benefit synapse connections, which is extremely important as well. The synapses are the connections between neurons, and as a result, facilitates brain communication. In conclusion, in this video, we covered the nervous system and several important nutrients. We discussed in detail 4 different types of neurons in the brain health itself, the spinal cord, and 3 important nutrients. Thank you for watching this video. For more information about this topic, there is a supplementary information presentation available on the lesson page at healthpatrol.org. For further reading, all the sources I used to create this video and the supplementary information are available when you click on the references button on the same page as the supplementary information at healthpatrol.org. Finally, if you have any questions, please email me at healthpatrolorg@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on Health Patrol, where happy people come from healthy food.